And let's begin. If you're Jay Gruden, who is widely expected to be the new offensive coordinator of the Jaguars, would you rather have Gardner Minshew or a Minshew-Nick Foles quarterback competition?
Definitely rather have Minshew Foles. You know, Nick Foles, after he hurt himself last year in the first quarter of the first game, just never got it going. And I'm not saying that Nick Foles is going to be a top 15 quarterback and lead you to the promised land. I'm not necessarily saying that. But there's a reason they gave him all that money, even though it might have been misplaced. I want to see a fair offseason program with him in it. I want to see them go head-to-head in the summer. And the way that Foles has been, and obviously he got hurt, and as erratic as Minshew was, but as fun and occasionally as extremely effective as he was, what's the harm in having both guys on your team?
You know, I've said in the past that the Jaguars would be better served by picking one of the two guys, specifically Minshew, and finding a way out of the Foles contract. The problem is there's not going to be an easy way out. You're not going to trade him with so many veteran free agents available this year. Look at the list of names of guys who are out there. Who's going to trade for Nick Foles when the jury's still out on whether or not he can get it done anywhere except in Philadelphia? And Nick Foles isn't going to be the typical high-priced quarterback who's got a chip on his shoulder and a bug up his butt because he's not playing. If they decide that Gardner Minshew's the guy, Foles will be supportive. He'll be ready to go if called upon to play. And I really do think one of the reasons the owner of the team, Shad Khan, gave Doug Marrone, the coach, and Dave Caldwell, the GM, another year is to see what they could do with Minshew. They found Minshew in round 6. They've developed him. Let's see what Minshew can do. So I think if there is a competition, it's going to be weighted in favor of Minshew, and I think Foles is fine with that. Foles will be ready to go. He'll be a good teammate. He'll help teach Minshew what he needs to know, and if Minshew gets hurt, Foles will be ready to play, Peter.
Bring them both back. That's all I can say, Mike. It's the best way to hedge your bet, and it would be one thing if Nick Foles were a jerk, and if he's thinking, boy, I'm going to be a problem if you guys pick Minshew. But he's Josh McCown. I mean, he's a great guy. He's a total team guy. And whatever the decision is, he's going to live with it and do what's best for the team.
He's made his money far more than anybody thought he would ever get paid. He's got his Super Bowl ring and his Super Bowl MVP trophy, and he's always been a great teammate. All right. If you're a Dolphins fan, would you rather take your chances with Tua Tagovailoa at number 5 or trade up and give up the draft capital that they have plenty of to get Joe Burrow at number 1?
Well, I don't know that you're going to be able to move up and get Joe Burrow. If you're the Cincinnati Bengals, you know, Mike Brown has a long history of being very stubborn about the draft. And the first year I ever covered the NFL, I covered the Bengals, and that was in 1984. It was the Steve Young year. And, you know, the Bengals are pragmatic, but they're also very, very stubborn. If they don't think they can sign a guy, they're gonna try to get what they can for him. But I only say that because now that Jimmy Burrow has come out and said Joe will be happy to play for the Bengals, be happy to play for whoever. Why in the world would you trade the opportunity to get, to pick the guy you really want? And again, Mike, we're not going to be able to answer this question until probably early April. We're not going to be able to know fully how Tagovailoa is feeling physically, how he's doing. I talked to a veteran NFL team doctor last week, and I said 2 high ankle sprains and a major hip injury in the span of 13 months for this quarterback. Are you worried about him being injury prone? And he said, no, these are all active injuries. There's nothing freak here. This is him getting hit. This is him getting hurt while being a physical player. So I'm not worried about that, but I have to believe that some teams at the top of the draft are going to be nervous about that. As Dan Orlovsky told me last week, he said, listen, it's going to take a courageous GM to pick Tua. It's going to take a courageous GM to pass on Tua.
And after Tua was injured in November, I canvassed more than 10, fewer than 20 general managers for their thoughts on what it meant for Tua. And one pointed out very candidly, 3 lower body injuries at the college level is a huge red flag, because if you're going to get injured there, If you're going to have durability issues there, it's only going to potentially get worse at the next level when you're getting hit harder by larger, faster, and or stronger men. So, look, it's a tough call for the Dolphins. But you're right. What would it take? At some point, there's an offer you put on the table that Mike Brown can't refuse. But how much does that take? And is it really worth giving up that much of your future on the difference between Tua and Joe Burrow? It may not be worth it for what the Bengals would want in order to pass on a guy who could maybe transform the franchise and put people in the seats, something the Bengals are having a hard time doing. All right, if it can be only one, would you rather see Tom Brady or Drew Brees playing for a new team in 2020, Peter?
I'd rather see Brady play for a new team. I just have this feeling like, it's not that it's played out in New England, because I definitely think Brady would go back. But I think the thought of Brady playing somewhere else might be a little bit energizing to him. The thought of him going to Vegas, the thought of him going to LA and being the new billboard for the Chargers. I think that'd be really energizing to him. Whereas, not to say that it wouldn't be the same for Drew Brees, but I just think the marriage between Brees and Sean Payton, I just think right now for the future, knowing how badly the Saints want to play 2020 with Brees, that I just think it's more natural to think of Brees back in New Orleans than I think it is to imagine Brady back in New England.
Yeah, and I think that it's more fascinating to see what Tom Brady can do without Bill Belichick, what Bill Belichick can do without Tom Brady. So between the two, I would rather see Brady with another team. But, we talked about this last week. If the Saints pay Brees, how in the world do you keep Taysom Hill around? And is the coach of the Patriots, Bill Belichick, the guy who shows up and makes Taysom Hill an offer that the Saints can't match and gladly gives up a low first-round pick to make Taysom Hill his new Tom Brady? There's a lot of dominoes that are going to fall. This is going to be a crazy offseason, Peter, when you look at all of the free agent quarterbacks who are out there, all the moving parts, and we don't know what the various teams are going to want to do. They're not going to tell us until they do it. Bill Belichick surely loves one of these quarterbacks, at least one of them. He's going to go after one of them. If he doesn't keep Tom Brady, we just won't know who it is until it happens.
Mike, last week, a general manager in the NFL and I were having a conversation, and he said, what would you think it would take to make the Saints not match an offer on Taysom Hill? And this is a team that has a quarterback. And I said, wow. How would Mr. X feel about you bringing in Taysom Hill? And that is one of the first problems. But the end of the conversation, he said, we're not going to be the only ones who are going to have some serious internal conversations about Taysom Hill. If I'm the Saints, I'm worried about the Taysom Hill conundrum and worried about some team making an offer for him. I don't know that it'll happen because everybody out there knows, Mike, that Taysom Hill is beloved by Sean Payton. And I believe that if I had to go to Vegas right now and put $5 on the Saints opening day quarterback in 2021, I'd put $5 on Taysom Hill.
Hey, Peter, you know who I obviously I'm not going to try to out your source, but we're watching the highlights of what Taysom Hill did against the Minnesota Vikings in the wild card round. He was the best player on the field that day for either team.
Yeah.
Hey, and we played a clip in the aftermath of that game where Paul Allen calling the play where Drew Brees fumbles when Danielle Hunter comes at him in the fourth quarter when the Saints could have taken the lead. And before the snap, Paul Allen says, I can't believe I'm saying it's a relief to see Drew Brees back in the game. But it was, because Taysom Hill was unstoppable. And you look at what the Vikings are dealing with Kirk Cousins, one more year. You come up with a deal with Taysom Hill where the money really kicks in 2021, with guarantees in 2021 after Cousins would be off the books. It's interesting possibilities, and I think you have to take Taysom Hill seriously, especially if you're one of the teams that's tried to chase him around and stop him like the Vikings had to do a few weeks ago. All right, a couple more of these before we break. How about this? If you were the Chiefs, would you rather have a compromised Chris Jones for 80% of your snaps on defense or a full-go Chris Jones only on third downs?
I'd rather have him on every down. He was just too valuable in the championship game. And I think that's a little bit of a faulty question, because the Kansas City Chiefs now have 13 days for Chris Jones to get treatment for 5 hours a day. And, he's going to be more ready or whatever the term would be. He's going to be more prepared to play in the Super Bowl than he was in this championship game. I absolutely want him. I want him to play. If there's 65 defensive snaps, I want him playing 50 of those in the Super Bowl.
Oh, absolutely. And look, it's not just what he does on third down, because who cares about third down with the San Francisco 49ers? They're going to run the ball on third down.
Right.
You want him out there to help blow up those sophisticated and exotic run schemes that Kyle Shanahan has created, and no one can stop. And if you can't stop that running scheme, and as I said earlier, we're going to know within the first quarter and a half whether or not the Chiefs can stop it. They're not going to adjust during the game to it. They're either going to be able to stop it or they're not. Chris Jones needs to be out there for them to have a chance to stop.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.